Hello. Good morning. My name is Megan, and I'm recording this for the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of McMinnville. I hope everyone is healthy and warm and feeling as prepared as possible to do your part to keep our community safe as possible in the coming weeks. I was scheduled to speak today to offer some thoughts on how social media is changing the way we connect with our neighbors and how we can turn those online connections into real world actions. But if you'll pardon me, I wanted to start with a story. 2 years ago yesterday, I was sitting in a hospital room with my father on his last day. And I got a phone call from my mechanic reminding me of an appointment. At first, I just wanted to cancel, but I had been waiting to get the work done for a while, and I knew that calling to schedule another appointment would not be a priority in the coming weeks. So I made a post on Facebook, and I asked if anyone had a flexible schedule and the ability to take my car to the mechanic for me. And my friend Shay responded, and she came to the hospital and picked up my car and brought it back with the work done. And it was such a small thing, but it meant so much to me that she was willing to set aside her plans to come and do something that must have seemed so insignificant in the moment, but made me feel like things were going to be okay. I met Shay on the internet, and the way that I met her and the way that our relationship grew to the point that she would drop everything to come and take my car to the mechanic, that's the focus of the story I want to tell you today. And that story is about how, for all the ills of social media, there is a deep value in making connections and building community online. And that value can go beyond finding wonderful friends who will save you in a moment of need. I believe that, like any tool, used the right way, social media can help us change the world for good. I grew up here in Yamhill County. I was born here. I graduated from high school here. I moved away and lived in several large cities. But when my wife and I were married, we moved back to Yamhill County because we knew we wanted to have children and we wanted them to grow up near grandparents. And we knew that we would want to lean on our grandparents. Thank you, Mom. Moving back to rural Yamhill County, though, as rural interracial couple with mixed race children, we were aware that we might not be welcomed back by all our neighbors equally. We felt grateful when our neighbors were kind to us, despite some of them clearly not knowing what to make of us. And we settled into feeling like the best that we could do was celebrate and enjoy the friends we had and live a life that didn't draw too much attention. But then November 2016 happened, and I couldn't sleep the night of the election. In isolating ourselves, we had allowed ourselves not to confront how much animosity there still was in the world, and it was a shock to have to confront that. I realized, too, just how much privilege I had had as the white half of my marriage in walking down the street and not being recognized as a member of my own family. Seeking something to do, I attended a gathering at a park near Portland the weekend after the election. The attendees there were grouped by region, and I was introduced to two women, a married couple, also from Yamhill County, who I'd never met before. We found we actually had very similar vision for taking action post-election, which was a desire to focus not on resisting the president, but on encouraging more awareness and action locally. So, having gone all the way to Washington County to meet each other, we returned to Yamhill County and we began to build what is now called Progressive Yamhill. Progressive Yamhill is a Facebook group. It's made up of Yamhill County residents who share a generally progressive political ideology. The group has an associated Facebook page, a website, a weekly newsletter, and it focuses exclusively on local politics and policy, from school boards to state senators, and all here in Yamhill County. The group has grown from 25 members in the first week to nearly 800 people today. And through those 800 members, we are all connected to a multitude of formal and informal groups throughout the county and the state, including churches like this one. And several amazing women have stepped up to help lead the group, including my friend Shay, none of whom I knew before 2016. Sometimes I'm shocked to think that without the election, I would have continued to live my life here, perhaps without ever meeting some of these people who have now become such a large part of my community. Progressive Yamhill's goal is to make information available to Yamhill County residents about the elected officials who represent them and how the decisions they make affect us. Most of the elected officials who represent Yamhill County residents are not familiar names. Most of them will never appear in news media outside of Yamhill County. They won't be on television stations from Portland. In most of them, In Yamhill County, we're lucky to have a local newspaper still publishing, but the News Register has a circulation of just 11,000, which means that maybe only 15 to 20% of registered voters in this county read the paper. In recent polls, as many as 70% of people reported that they're getting at least some of their news from social media, largely Facebook. But when we say that they're getting their news on Facebook, what does that really mean? Well, in Newburgh, there are more members in one local Facebook community discussion group than there are adults living in the city limits. And because some candidates or elected officials are also members of that group, people in those groups have an opportunity to observe them over time and in public in ways that can't really be replicated outside of social media. You don't just know that woman as your city councilor, you've seen her return a lost dog to its owner through Facebook or provide a helpful answer to a question. Most of the elected positions in Yamhill County are nonpartisan, and most voters in Yamhill County probably couldn't tell you what that city councilor or that school board member's responsibilities are, which is probably why during school board elections, which are held in odd years in May, we usually only see about a 20% voter turnout. That means that 4 out of 5 voters received a ballot and then didn't turn it in. But school boards oversee budgets larger than the cities that they're in. And school districts employ more people in this county than any other industry. So understanding what they do is important, and encouraging people to run for these positions is important. And most of all, paying attention to the decisions that they make is really important. When we talk about social media, sometimes we fail to consider the social aspect of it, is that we are in connection with people we've chosen, to some degree, to connect with. Our friends, our families, our neighbors. Hearing opinions from friends and families is incredibly persuasive when it comes to making decisions about voting or shopping. And seeing our social media take action can influence us to action. In 2018, nearly 30% of young people learned about the midterm elections only through social media. But what if they didn't just hear about the elections right before the election? What if they heard about the result of the elections on their daily lives because you, their social media network, was making an active decision to share information that's relevant? Being informed is just part of the equation. We also need opportunities to act. and we need encouragement to act. Doing something new for the first time is intimidating. Being invited to do something new by a friend can be exciting. Requests for action made to members of Progressive Yamhill have resulted in hundreds of people attending a protest at McMinnville High School with just 48 hours notice, in the middle of the day, on a Wednesday. We've shown up at school board meetings to fight for student access to challenging books. We've gathered regularly for a monthly book club, or sometimes just to talk about our families over tea. We've registered high school students to vote in English and in Spanish. By sharing through our social networks, we saw racist comments made by a local elected official make the headlines in the Oregonian. When asylum seekers were imprisoned at Sheridan Correctional Institution, members of our group coordinate a huge rally attended by over 1,200 people. But more amazingly, several people from our group went on to be part of a respite network, working in shifts to pick up immigrants upon their to take them to a safe place when their asylum was granted. There are so many more stories like these that I can list. But the common factor is that when people understand the underlying reasons for action and the impact that their action could have on their community, and they see opportunities for action, they are more likely to take those actions, especially if they can do it with friends and people they're familiar with. We're all used to seeing the sentiment that time is wasted when it's spent on social media like Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. But over the last 3 years, I've seen social media turn online relationships into the kind of friendships that drop everything to take a friend's car to the mechanic. The nature of advocacy is that it never ends. It can be exhausting to care about something you may not see change in your lifetime. But building community can be a more immediate reward. From protests and rallies to candidate trainings and social tea, Progressive Yamhill has shown me that we can create online community that becomes a real world change. And it can all start behind our keyboards. When I first considered this talk before COVID-19, I intended to end just by talking about how an online place to share political news had grown beyond the internet to become a real life community here in Yamhill County. But in light of the last few days, I also wanted to take a moment to celebrate all the ways that social media can help keep us sane and moving forward as we stay safe at home. I want to encourage you, most of all, to be honest on Facebook. We all want to look like we have our lives together, like I'm not recording this at midnight before it's due the next day. But we can also be gentle with each other. We can ask for help and receive it. We can connect with that neighbor whose yard we've always admired by joining the gardening group in your community. We can learn how to make soap. We need a lot of soap by joining a soap making group. Take a moment to consider the person you want to be and find the group of people who are able to help you make it happen. And if you can't find that group, make it. The right people will come. We shall be known by the company we keep. Thank you for your time. Please stay safe, and please return your census forms and your ballots this May. Thank you.